Hey, it's Nick Raboy, and I'm joined with my co-host Michael Lynn, and we're going to be talking with Dave Stewart from Vendrix. So, if you're interested in learning how you can manage your credit cards within your organization, Vendrix is the product that does this. And through this podcast, we're going to learn how they're doing certain things when it comes to data security, how they're using MongoDB Atlas, and all the different things that they went through as a startup in the MongoDB for Startups
The
program.
only constant in software is change.
Software development, data, and all things MongoDB. It's time for the MongoDB podcast with your hosts Michael Lynn and Nick Raboy.
Welcome to the podcast, Dave. Do you want to start by telling us a little bit about yourself before we jump into the core material?
Sure. Thanks, Nick. Yeah, it's definitely been an interesting journey up until this point. Right out of school, started my career down in Savannah with Kiewit. For those of you that don't know, Kiewit's a multi-billion-dollar infrastructure contractor that's been responsible for building some of America's modern marvels. San Francisco Bay Bridge might be one that your listeners are familiar with. So down in Savannah, I met Joe Turner, our co-founder, and that's really where we kind of developed and came about this issue of corporate purchasing and how time-consuming it was, and took us away from our daily jobs.
Now, you weren't always a developer, right? You were pretty much in the infrastructure business, right?
Yeah, so I was always been a problem solver, an engineer, structural engineer by trade, and kind of developer on the side. Back from the original iPhone days in 2007 to trying to get them unlocked in our dorm room to get them off of the Singular or AT&T network at the time onto T-Mobile, and for whatever reason, just never really pursued development full time until the right opportunity came about here in the last year, where we really wanted to get this product to market and knew that no one's going to give us money to go pay a bunch of developers or outsource our technology. So in order for us to develop and really innovate, that core group has to come from within. So
And your product actually came from a personal need, not just
it
a
did.
need that you've seen overall.
Yeah. So to give our users just background on corporate purchasing in general, is you kind of have two methods. One is your traditional PO expense, workflow. You put in a purchase request, get a quote, send it to the vendor. That vendor fulfills that order. Well, once that vendor fulfills that order, you're only halfway done, because then you have the invoice that shows up a week, 2 weeks into the month, and that invoice has to get routed through the company to the user who made the purchase, reviewed, approved, then generally a check cut, or some other method of paying that vendor. And it's just very time consuming. There's not good data on it. You're always seeing, that data, meaning how much you spent a month down the road in your cost reports. So it's just not ideal. The other option is credit cards. When traditional business credit cards, you assign a overall credit limit to that user, and that user is essentially free to spend on whatever he needs or whatever he wants. And sometimes those are legitimate purchases, sometimes they're not. They're not. Then you use a traditional expense platform to, expense and get those transactions approved. Well, you're not really approving the purchase because it's already been made. You're just approving where you're coding that. So that's where we developed Vendrix, and ended up here today. And Vendrix, where we're different from your traditional PO expense management platform, is that you sign up, business signs up for the Vendrix card, and we issue you a business line of credit and a Vendrix card. And from there, um, we have control over what that card gets used for. So you're not expensing after the purchase has been made, you're getting that approval before. And if you haven't gotten that approval, we decline the transaction at the point of purchase. And that really gives businesses a good insight.
So, in regards to the approval process, is this something like, is there like a list of providers that somebody adds to your application, and if it doesn't appear on that list, then it's on like a automatic deny list? Like if I wanted to make a purchase to Dell, for example, would Dell have to be on that as the authorized provider list, or maybe explain a little bit about that?
Sure. So, um, our platform is really geared around small medium businesses to where when they sign up, they have access to our dashboard and our portal, and from there, they also have a business line of credit, right? So we underwrote them, so they can then go in and build budgets, um, for how they want to break up that spend, or that spend for the month or the year. And those budgets have members, which would be employees or cardholders, and certain members, depending on however that business wants to set up that logic, can't make any purchase without getting approval. So that card's essentially useless. Others might be approvers to where they go into their mobile app and basically create a purchase. So you select, hey, I want to go to Dell, spend $1,200. I'm charging this to the general office IT overhead budget. So as a business owner, I can see that expense. Hey, we've now committed $1,200 for a new computer, new monitor. They haven't made the purchase, but you can see we're about to um, have that liability come against our credit. So once that transaction gets approved, we then open that card up to that vendor for that amount. So you can't take our Vendrix card and go to Walmart or Home Depot and spend $1,200. It's restricted to Dell, and we do that through a bunch of API, so through several API calls and some other logic that we've built core to our platform.
That's it sounds like a level of control that would be perfect for a startup or a smaller business. Who are you targeting? Who are your customers?
So initially, our customers are construction, just due to the high level of purchasing and the extreme amount of cost control that they do. But really, our product can scale to any businesses that want to make purchasing, right? We're trying to bring that ability to build control budgets and control your cash flow as a business owner, while still giving your employees the ability to spend so that there's no lost time. You can give
Mm,
our cards out to employees, and when they need to go and buy a new keyboard or a computer, they can put the request in and it can get approved. And they're not sharing a card from an office manager, or sharing one credit card in the office that then creates a accounting nightmare.
that's great. So, do you have customers that use credit cards on a project by project basis, or is it typically just management to the user?
So it all depends. Some companies do end up giving cards out to their employees with a real tight credit limit. And what that ends up happening is their manager ends up getting all the charges, or they end up borrowing their card, and because the purchases still need to be made, and it just creates more of a expensing nightmare. Other companies have one card for the whole office, or no cards at all, and just deal with the pain points of having
Mm.
to set up accounts and get POs.
And how long have you been in business? How long, when did you launch?
So we plan on launching here into the month in May 2020. We're planning on launching with three private beta companies, and really getting our product out, getting it integrated, getting feedback. So we expect that private beta to launch 4 to 6 weeks, or to last four to
Hmm.
six weeks, and then opening it up to, not only contractors, but small, medium businesses as a whole.
That's exciting. Perfect timing.
Oh, yeah.
So I guess I'm interested in how you came to choose MongoDB. Were you familiar with or using MongoDB with a previous project?
So it really came when we were developing what we wanted our backend platform to run on. And, traditionally I come from, Ruby on Rails, and being that, we're a very transactional intensive platform, we decided to go with Node, and basically JavaScript front to back. And naturally, the benefits of a NoSQL based database, and Node's ability to scale over to microservices really, um, created the right environment for us to get a product out quickly. And Mongo's flexibility with uh, just what we need, so we can constantly be iterating, constantly changing, and as features need to be rolled out, or as we need data, Mongo offers that flexibility. So, it's really something I've started out with here in the last 6 months, and couldn't be more happy with.
Oh, that's great. And you're using MongoDB Atlas, right?
Yes, Atlas um, just provides some pretty incredible, services, especially for a startup. We don't have time to to read and research. We just need to get our product built, get it out there securely, and being able to deploy that and have that interface go quickly without having to spin up an entire node instance or have a separate node instance is great. It just allows us to again move forward and get our product out. And same thing goes for charts. We can quickly throw together to pull certain data out of our um, MongoDB Atlas cluster and see, hey, how many users, pull in some of that GeoJSON data of where in the country are most of our users focused, and what kind of spend are we getting on our platform, and that allows us to accurately forecast, revenue for the next month. So it's certainly a
Yeah.
powerful platform.
So we kind of jumped around a little bit there, but I love the fact that you're looking at Realm as a way to increase your agility, and then you mentioned MongoDB Charts. So you're actually using MongoDB Charts today?
Yeah, so we're just using a real basic implementation, which allows us to again see data in a real quick instance. Something that would traditionally require us to use something like Power BI or Tableau, we now have that built right into Atlas, and it just again it's quick. We're not having to spend time a day or two figuring out integration, trying to connect data sources of a traditional BI software suite, and that's again real valuable to a startup because time's limited. So
Absolutely.
So, in regards to how you're using MongoDB, then, do you want to paint a story on, without shedding too much of your secret sauce as far as your application goes, just how you're using Atlas when it comes to what you're doing?
yeah, so I mean Atlas is our database of record, and that is what holds our users, companies, transactions, and the ability to then relate all that data into a single API call is really pretty amazing. So when a user logs in and we pull that current user profile, we're sending to them in one API call all the relevant data and only the data, not extra of what we need to be in that React web app and that single page app. And that's really what's amazing is just the flexibility we have to control in that one user profile call, what data gets rendered. And that is, as we're building this out and developing and changing and pivoting on certain features, has really been an asset to us in saving dev time and not having to go back and restructure how our database is laid out and those relationships.
And so where are you running the React app, the app portion of
I,
the stack?
I'm sorry, Mike, you broke up. What was that?
Yeah, where are you running the app?
So we're GCP, so we're running in Google App Engine, and then and that will initially be our prototype MVP product, and then we'll be scaling that over to a Kubernetes cluster. Once we kind of have the resources and get hopefully by the end of the year.
Hmm. So you've got a React front end. Anything running between React and the database? Maybe an Express or Node
Yeah,
backend.
so we have a Node Express backend, and
Hmm.
right now it's a monolith. But again, you know, our platform and how we're building it is going to be able to easily get stripped away into a pretty robust Kubernetes cluster. That will handle certain transactions, user signups, and um, kind of allow us to scale as intended. So.
And we briefly touched on this when we were talking about Realm, but anything specific in the mobile space? Are you looking at React Native or
Yeah,
anything?
so initially just getting our product out, we're doing a single page web app, and that'll allow us to, again, really iterate and listen to our customer feedback. And then, yes, it will be a React
Mhm.
native iOS or Android app. And, that's where we plan on really taking advantage of some of the features that Realm has to offer in terms of data synchronization and, ensuring that our app loads and has good end user performance.
So you're storing some pretty sensitive information, I assume, in MongoDB with any kind of financial data that's associated to a credit card. What kind of precautions are you taking in regards to security?
Well, that's a great question, and we're of course happy to answer it. Right. So, Being that we are a platform for controlling cards and controlling expenses, we've gone to great lengths to, really ensure that we're tokenizing that data, and that card number, that PAN, stays with Mastercard, so that we're only handling when those transactions hit our platform. We know the user, we know the card, but we don't know the card number. So um, but taking that a step back, with just data security in general, we've adopted Google's implementation of a zero trust network, which is, context aware access and dynamically granting access based off of what we know about the user and that device, along with obviously making sure everything's authorized and encrypted. So, that's one portion. And then the second portion is, your encrypted data is only as good as, the credentials and keys you have storing that. So implementing 100% hardware 2FA enforcement of all our employees, and just
Um,
really making security number one.
So, in regards to the stuff that you're storing in MongoDB, I imagine that you're storing a lot of sensitive information because you're dealing with credit card data, people's financial information. At least that's what I assume. Can you talk a little bit about how you're handling security?
Yeah, Nick, absolutely. It's a great question, and we've actually gone through, some pretty extensive links to ensure that the data we are handling it correctly. And first, to start out, is PCI compliance and credit card numbers. That's the big question on everyone's mind. And luckily, where we're situated is those numbers stay with Mastercard. So unlike a major retailer, we have no need to identify our customers based off of their credit card number. Hey, would you like a receipt sent to your email, because we know you're the same user? So we do that by tokenizing the number, so that we can refer to that user and those transactions through a token, which is essentially useless to anyone else but us. And so that's the first part, right? Is just avoiding storing sensitive information, as it's really not necessary in what we're doing. And then two is just our view as a company overall on corporate security. And we've chosen to implement Google's version of the zero trust network, which has a couple key principles. One is context aware access, dynamically granting access based on what we know about you and your device. And then obviously making sure that all access to services are through authenticated, authorized, and encrypted means. And we take that a step further with 2FA and hardware enforcement of our employees' credentials, meaning um, every employee, whether a developer or entry level sales, has 100% hardware authentication. So some of y'all might know that's Google's advanced protection. So we implement that to really, if not eliminate, the reduce of phishing attacks. I mean, because you can have the best encryption in the world, but if you have the keys and the credentials, that encryption isn't really going to do you much
You're
good.
talking
So
about FIDO compliant
um,
devices, right? All right.
Correct. Yes. So a hardware key that you have to have in your computer and physically touch, not a text message to a FA or a acknowledge on your smartphone. We're actually checking to see that, hey, you said you're logging in from, Atlanta, Georgia. Is this FIDO device on that same network,
Hmm,
not coming from a foreign network, which would, indicate a man in the middle attack?
great. Well, it sounds like you've got security covered. That's great. And of course, in addition to all of those measures that you've taken, folks that are listening in, well, you're leveraging MongoDB Atlas, so you're probably aware of this, but we always store data at rest in encrypted format, and data in flight is always encrypted as well. So
Yeah.
so that's great there. So what's next for Vendrix? You talked about going live and launching. That's exciting. But tell us about the roadmap and some of the things coming down the pike for you.
Yeah. So again, our big push this month, May 2020, is to get into the hands of three select businesses that we have working relationships with, and really start iterating our product and really refining it. And then from there, just improving the user experience, and that is through native apps, and then just rolling out features and doing that feature rollout in a systematic way that are not only do they work and are bug free, but also are really what our customers want. And again, with the end game of saving them time so that their employees can get back to doing their job, not pushing paper, which is something that Joe and I, as co-founders, were real frustrated with. Is, we're spending 20-30% of our time pushing paper versus doing, the job that we want to do as engineers, and then just rolling out other features.
Great. So where can, if listeners are interested, where can they get more information about Vendrix?
Yeah, so head on over to our website, vendrix.co. You can sign up and request a demo, or just reach out, join our mailing list, and then obviously your traditional. We got links to our LinkedIn and Instagram and various social media links.
Any other shameless plugs you want to put out there?
Outstanding.
Maybe your own personal Twitter in case people want to follow up with you after the show.
Sure. Yeah. If you want, my Instagram is stewart.ds. If you can follow me, or mainly my dog, out here in Colorado and our adventures in the Colorado mountains when we're not under COVID-19 lockdown.
Great. Well, it's been a great conversation and thoroughly compelling use of the technology. I'm really interested to see where this goes. Nick and I were talking earlier. We're talking already about having a where are they now? So I'm excited to see what happens with Vendrix. Any last parting thoughts or comments before we close out?
I'd just like to mention the MongoDB startup program that y'all have going, and being a part of that. And just another real attraction to the Atlas program is, again, getting those reviews once we have that implemented by implementation engineers, and getting that time to ensure that we have optimized our indexing of certain key items within Mongo to ensure that, okay, we're now going from a beta stage now to a scale stage, and ensure that we can do that not only from a performance standpoint, but also an economic standpoint. And obviously the startup credits go a long way as a startup in the early days of trying to expand our runway to get to that next step and getting revenue in the door so that we can be a self-sustaining business. So Mike and Nick, we really appreciate the support on that front.
Yeah, no, it's great to have you in the program. And while you're talking about that, so I'm actually preparing for a talk, and I spend a lot of time talking with startups and founders just like yourself. And are there other programs that you're a part of that do the same thing as the MongoDB for Startups program does, where we kind of extend access to the platform, access to technical expertise? Are you aware of any other, or using any other startup programs like that?
So we're using another startup program from Google that has a similar implementation. Obviously, Google in their platform, they're really trying to get startups on their platform over some of their competitors. The other two that I'm sure everyone is aware of, and also getting that support and ensuring that we're implementing correctly. We have, security measure best practices to not only review and audit what we've come up with and developed, but also getting that, again, that second opinion. Coming from a structural engineering standpoint, right, we always get feedback from other people, other engineers, and never put that ego saying that, hey, we got this. It's always getting that reviews like, hey, this is how we've designed this implementation, and these are the measures that we think will best control our risk and our risk to our users, and getting input, or essentially a peer review of that implementation. And that is so valuable. Helps us sleep at night a little bit better.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So Nick, anything else from you?
No,
before
that's
we close
it.
out?
Thanks for coming on the show, Dave.
Well, I certainly
really
appreciate
your
the
time.
invite. Yeah.
Special thanks to Jersey Fisher and Stephen Twardzik for audio engineering. Thanks to Rebecca Mossner for production and social media of the podcast. Become a part of the community. community.mongodb.com. You can interact with other developers. You can let us know what you want to hear on the podcast next. You can learn more about how to use MongoDB at theuniversity.mongodb.com. You can find us on social media at MongoDB. Thanks, everyone.